Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the second webinar in our business support series in collaboration with Nordens. So this webinar is on sales and marketing. I'm just going to do a few introductions if you didn't join our last webinar. So I'm Greg Guilford. I'm the CEO of HR Solutions, and I've got Joe Sword, who's the head of strategic business planning at Nordens, and Joe will be doing most of the speaking today. We're also supported by Atim Arden, our digital marketing exec, who will be able to support you with any technical questions as we go through. Those of you who've joined our webinars in the past will know we do want to encourage audience participation, but you are all on mute at the moment. So in order to ask questions, we just want you to just take a few moments to familiarize yourselves with the GoToWebinar tool, the app that should be on your screen. There's a questions tab that can expand, and if you put your questions in there, then we'll answer those at the end of the session. So please feel free to put as many of those in as you wish. We also have some polls that we'll be doing throughout the session for you. So you'll see the image on the screen that will pop up, and there'll just be a couple of polls as we go to just to try and encourage audience participation. This is an interactive session, so we'll encourage you to take as many notes throughout the session as you can. And Joe's obviously going to try and get you to think about your business and some of the things that he's talking about. So make sure you've got a pen and paper handy. So as I said, this is on sales and marketing, and I'm now going to pass you over to Joe, who's going to take the rest of the session.
Brilliant, thanks Greg. So as Greg mentioned, my name's Joe Sword. I'm a strategic consultancy director at Nordens. And we've worked with hundreds and thousands of businesses over the years, and we believe that we've got the ability to help many of you move to the next level through our advisory service. And we'd like to make this available to as many people as possible. So the framework of what we're looking at today is off the back of the bi-weekly online Interactive Accelerator Program, all around advisory, which we've created during the first lockdown. And it's based on what we call our Wheel of Success. And within that, there are 7 segments, and we will focus as part of this webinar series, we're going to focus on each one of them. So the 7 areas are vision and goals, which is what we looked at last week, sales and marketing that we're going to look at today, mindset, cash flow, systems and processes, profitability, and team and culture. And we feel they're the 7 key fundamentals to all successful businesses. And on the flip side, the businesses that are struggling or not doing as well as they could be is generally down to one or more of these reasons. So a little bit about our program. I know on the previous webinar I went into a bit more detail, but if anyone needs to know more, you can always contact us or just watch the previous webinar because I think recordings are available. But in a nutshell, our Interactive Accelerator Program gives you 3 key benefits, and they are bespoke advice from our team of consultants and special guests, access to a group of like-minded business owners from a variety of sectors to give you different thoughts and perspectives, which will also enhance your support network. And over the years, we've realised that having someone who isn't as emotionally attached to your business as you are, offer their thoughts or perspectives from that sort of impartial or unemotional point of view, is a really underrated success factor. And finally, you'll have a team of people to hold you accountable. And this is proven to get results quicker. So we really emphasise and have a strong focus on goals and actions during the programme. So it ensures that you don't just build momentum, but you maintain it. So all those ingredients we've found are really key elements for success. And we've had a growing number of case studies for businesses and their owners who are thriving because of the programme. And it's proven that working with others in this sort of group setting and in this way can increase your success rate by up to 200%. So that gives you a little bit of an insight into the program and how we've developed it and why we've led to the webinar for today. But today's focus is going to be around your sales and marketing. And as Greg mentioned, what we're looking to do is create a bit of interactiveness by using the polling system on the webinar. So what we'd say is just be honest and as open as you can be when you're answering the questions. The poll itself, the percentages and the answers that come out will be anonymous, so we're not going to be looking to name and shame anyone or drill deep in that way, but we would like to get a feel of where you all are positioned in your business at the moment. So we'll use the polls to ask a few questions as we go along, but if you have any problems or questions as we go through, like Greg mentioned, just pop a message in the chat box or give us a signal and we'll do our best to help. So What we'll do is we'll start off by giving a bit of context into what we're about to lead into with the poll, and then we can go from there, and we'll have a little chat around what people are saying and where people are. So I think let's start with planning and why not having a clear sales and marketing strategy is one of the biggest pitfalls in business. One of the leading reasons businesses fail is that there's a lack of understanding in the market of the need your product or service actually fills. And often this is due to not enough thought or action being put into the overall sales or marketing strategy. So in this section, we're going to focus on why it's so important for businesses to have that clear sales and marketing plan, and just how important understanding the market and listening to your customer actually is. So making a sale is all about closing a lead, and leads are generated from marketing. But when we ask many business owners who aren't as successful as they want to be, what is your sales and marketing plan? They'll often reply with, well, we don't really have one, or I've got a bit of one, but it's all in my head, or we don't really know where to start. And in the digital world we live in today, there are so many ways to market yourself, but because of that, it also brings room for confusion and therefore more pitfalls, as doing it wrong is actually more frustrating and costly than not doing it at all. So you need to have a real clear sales and marketing plan, which will give you that direction and a starting point. So a few things to initially consider when developing your sales and marketing strategy for your business are, firstly, your target audience. Who are they and why them? It's vital to describe and understand your customer, as they will help you position your offering. You have to remember that marketing effectively is about what the customer or prospect wants to hear, not necessarily what you feel they need to know. Next, you need to consider your value proposition. So failure to understand what your customer wants, and more importantly, why, will result in your business not being successful. So from a customer's perspective, you need to be able to explain the need your product or service serves, leaving your customer saying, I want this product or service. And people buy with emotion and back up the purchase with logic. So for example, I want that new car because I can feel the wind flowing through my hair with the top down and the shiny wheels glistening in the sun. It's just going to be amazing. You're feeling it. You've got the emotion there. Okay, I'll buy it. And then they'll back it up with logic by saying things like, well, it has to be bought because I need that thing to get me from A to B, and my car's due an upgrade, and I'll save on the repairs because my car's older now, etc., etc., etc. So when you're explaining how your product or service will reduce their pain or enhance their pleasure, make sure you're telling stories that will help them understand how your product or service will make them feel, because when you get them in that zone, they're the most primed to purchase. The other things to consider are your competitive advantage. So it isn't just sufficient to show how you solve the problem or remove their pain. You need to emphasize why your product is the best, leaving your customers saying, I want you to give me the product or service ahead of the competition. So for this, you need to be looking at your USPs, or unique selling points, and why customers should come to you over your competitors. And finally, you need to look at your pricing strategy. So aligning with the previous 2 points, the price you quote is aligned with the value the customer perceives to be given, leaving them comfortable making the decision to part with their money. So pricing is a very comprehensive area, but the cold reality is the price and the value of your offering is what someone is willing to pay for it at that point in time. So testing the market is paramount to avoid missing out on potentially achieving a higher price, or otherwise pricing yourself out of the market completely. And one thing that's really valuable that we've found is building packages into your offering, because this can often help the customer feel like they're getting more, and ultimately the one making the decision. So pricing in a more lucrative way for you and the customer, everyone feels like a winner. So to start off with, I'd like to hear from you all about your sales and marketing plan. So the first poll is all around where you're at with your sales and marketing plan. So I believe we're going to put that up on the screen now, and there's a few options. So do you have a clearly documented sales and marketing plan? You review it regularly. Have you got one documented, but you're a bit inconsistent using it and you maybe don't really follow it too much? You have an outline of the plan, but it's all in your head, or you literally just don't have a plan. And like we said, just be honest, because it'd be really good just to get a gauge of where you're all at with your sales and marketing planning at the moment. So I think Greg's going to leave it open for a little bit longer to get a few more answers in, and then we'll have a little look and see what everyone's put.
Yeah, so quite a few people have already responded, so we're about 80% now. So just going to give a few more seconds for those of you who haven't ticked chosen your option. Okay, so it's slowed down a little bit, so I'm just going to close that poll and share the result.
Okay, so that's quite interesting. So we've got 14% people that don't have a plan, and hopefully we as we go through today, we'll emphasise and you'll be able to see just why it's so important. And when we're talking about a plan, we don't necessarily mean it has to be a 100-page document that will take months to put together. You know, just start really small, and this is what we're going to be emphasising. Start small, but do things regularly. We've got 36 people that have said, or 36%, sorry, that have said that they've got an outline of a plan, but it's all in my head. And I think that's a good start to have the plan, but in your head, it's going to be more difficult to get that message across and also track it. So I think if you're able to move that to the next level, get that down on paper, you can start tracking it and also bring other people in your business into it so you're all following it. Documented but inconsistent in using it and following it. Okay, so you're nearly there. The 7% of people that have said that. You just maybe need to look at why you're inconsistent using and following it. Is there an underlying reason there? Can you get a bit more structured with it, and you'll get probably likely to get better results. And then the 43% of you that have got a clearly documented sales and marketing plan, you're reviewing it regularly, fantastic. Always keep reviewing it to keep looking for ways that you can potentially improve that, because things will develop, as we've all seen. The ways of marketing and generating sales have changed so significantly over even the short term that things are always evolving. So stay on track with that, but that's fantastic where you guys are at the moment. So that was really interesting. What we'll look at now is some more key considerations and things to look at within your sales and marketing plan itself. So I think firstly, one of the things that you need to be looking at is identifying the marketing outlets, so to speak, in which you will deliver your message. Why are you choosing these ahead of others? So for example, social media platforms such as Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook and Instagram are becoming more and more popular. But you have to make sure that you're doing the right things on these platforms. Otherwise, you may end up just creating in unimportant noise, so to speak. Things like Google Ads or the more traditional sort of radio or TV magazine advertising can also be considered. But I think you need to appreciate, you don't need to utilize all of these. You have to think about where your target audience are positioned and what will resonate with them, you know? Because for example, if you're targeting an audience that, for example, don't really read magazines as much, why would you advertise in a magazine? For a simple example, I mean, not everyone will read or not read magazines, but you hopefully will get the picture, you know. Is my business model adaptable? So you need to consider the adaptability of your business model, especially in times such as these. And what we've seen throughout this pandemic is that very, very fixed, rigid business models are much more susceptible to changes, whereas diverse business models with multiple offerings can adapt quicker and continue to thrive. You also need to look at ways you can upsell bolt-ons, packages and related products, as this is one way of really generating lucrative returns. So consider whether your offering at the moment can be expanded or packaged up slightly different to generate more value. Consider your sales team in your marketing plan, of course. So in the best businesses, everyone is part of the sales team, and sometimes it's misunderstood that you have a separate segment for sales and no one else in your business gets involved in that way. It's really important that everyone in your business understands your offering and how they can spot opportunities and sell additional services to upgrade current customers. And alongside this, look at external collaborations and partnerships to give a wider scope of people selling for you. One thing that we've found again over since the pandemic is how many businesses and people have been able to come together, and collaborations I feel are going to become more and more prolific as we move forward, working with each other to give a better all-round service to your target audience. So consider whether you're collaborating at the moment to the maximum that you can be. And finally, there are no better salespeople of your product or service than your existing customers. And while potential leads may love what you say, hearing the same from a paying customer often enhances those trust levels and could be the tipping point between them buying or not. So encourage that regular feedback through reviews, testimonials, and case studies. Something else to consider on your sales and marketing plan that often gets left or not really considered is actually what are you going to do with data that you're collecting as you're going along. So understanding your data and interpreting this and using it as a tool that you can actually base a decision on is really important. So as a starting point, what we recommend is to ask yourself 6 questions that I think we've got them up on the screen now. So how much your existing customers spend with you, so your average transaction value, how frequently do they buy from you, how long have they been your customers, how many referrals do they provide you with, how many leads do you generate every month, and how many leads do you convert every month? Because once you start seeing this information and you can start spotting trends, you'll be able to make good quality decisions off the back of it. And you also need to explain how you're going to develop your CRM or customer relationship management system to ensure that you stay in regular contact with your customers. And this way you can also target market effectively, including specific newsletters and social media posts to tap into certain customer demographics and also give that personal service so your customers don't just feel like a number. And it will also be a platform that you can use to easily ask for referrals. So the CRM system is basically set up to manage and analyze interactions with past, current and potential customers. So make sure you collate and get as much information on your clients as you possibly can, because you just don't know where that bit of information could lead you to. So things like their full name, their company name, email address, their birthdays, their gender, their location, it will allow you to adjust your marketing techniques to who they are as a person, as opposed to just doing things generically. And one of the big benefits of having a CRM system, of course, is that all data on your clients and customers should be in one place, making it much easier to tailor your approach to their wants and needs. You do have to be aware of the considerations around GDPR and the collection of personal data, but providing you're ticking all the boxes there, you can really use your CRM system for real positive benefit in your business. And the last thing is to accept the need and the use of specialists. So we believe that certain things such as digital marketing, employing a specialist to assist is often a better solution in the long term than you slaving away and doing it all yourself. It may cost a bit more to invest in this in the short term, but we prefer to use that word investment, with the payout being you achieving your goals sooner and ideally having more free time. So often sales is seen as a bit of a dirty, difficult word, but I really believe it doesn't have to be, and it doesn't have to be something that people are frightened of. And the people who say, well, I can't sell, I would argue that anyone who has a product or service they're passionate about and can really articulate the benefits someone would get from purchasing their product can sell. So off the back of that, we're going to do a little poll around your CRM system and what your CRM systems in your business currently look like, because it is a fundamental starting point for all your marketing efforts. So let's have a little look, and we've got a few options that I think we're going to put up on the screen now. So you've got a digital CRM and it's updated in real time. Pretty much perfect, you know, that's fantastic. It's all up to date in real time. You can see where your customers are. You've got a fully digital CRM. The next option, you've got a digital CRM, but you don't maybe use it consistently, or it's not utilized to its maximum capacity. The other options, you've got a manual CRM. So it's not digital, it's manually entered, or it doesn't talk to your customers in the way it could do, and it's not actively used. And the last option is you don't actually have a CRM in place at the moment. Maybe your customer details are in your head perhaps, and it's just not documented anywhere. So it'll be cool to see where everyone's positioned in terms of their CRM, because like I said, it's such a vital part of getting your marketing right and being able to make the most of your marketing.
Okay, so about 70% have completed so far, so just going to give it a few more seconds.
Great.
Okay, I'm going to close it now and share.
Okay, so we've got a bit of a mixture here. So we've got people who don't have a CRM at all, which is interesting, and I think hopefully explaining the benefits of having one. I think without a CRM, it becomes very, very difficult for you to do any form of really true good quality marketing to your customers, and you just miss too many opportunities without a CRM system in place. So I think the first hurdle would be, even if you don't feel comfortable making a fully fledged digital CRM to start off with, start jotting something down, have a record, even if it's just a simple spreadsheet of who your customers are, the demographics, and the areas that you feel that you could utilize as a marketing opportunity. So maybe like where they're based, perhaps their age, perhaps any feedback that you can get from them, any other interests where you can start categorizing your customers and your customer base. Some of the same percentage actually have got a manual CRM, not actively used. So, okay, so you kind of get the gist of the importance of a CRM, but you're not really using it very well, and it's manual. So one thing I would consider there is to really explore the options you've got around a digital CRM, because in the past, they used to be quite pricey and also quite clunky, and you didn't really get a lot of benefits from them. Nowadays, there are a lot more options out there for you to make your CRM digital and work harder for you. So I definitely consider that for those people in that bracket. Some of you, quite the biggest percentage, have actually got a digital CRM and not utilised consistently. Well, that's great that you've got the digital CRM, and it's good that you're being honest about it, that you're not maybe using it as consistently as you could. So I think, like I've said on the previous poll, just start small. Pick out that one area that you feel you could get more from your digital CRM, and more that you'd like your CRM to tell you. And I think often what happens is you can work with the companies that produce your CRM, and they can actually start tailoring it for you to make your experience using it even better. So I think pick that one area where you feel, you know what, we could be a bit more consistent here. We could do this on a more regular basis. We could get this report out. We could perhaps look at this in a bit more detail. Just pick that one thing that you feel will give you the most benefits first and start with that. But the good thing is you've actually got a digital CRM, so you should have all the tools there to get the most from it. And the 14% of you that have a digital CRM that's updated in real time, fantastic, brilliant. And I think it's about, now you're in the prime position, it's about exploring and maximizing your CRM to the best of its ability. What are you and what can you do? How can you make the most of this? How can you target your customers, and how can you break down your customers into a way where you can expand your marketing efforts? So that's really interesting, because we've got a good group there of different positions where people are at. So we're going to do another poll straight after this now. And one of the things that we touched on earlier was about different packages for customers, and you're now seeing this more and more. And I think the good thing is it transfers the decision to the customer, so it feels like the customer is actually choosing. So for the example that Greg's put on the screen here, we've got what's called a pretty standard sort of packaging system nowadays. You've got a bronze, a silver, a gold, a platinum package, and what it does is it allows you to cleverly push people to the package you want them to choose. So often you'll see a platinum package being a really, really high fee, all singing, all dancing. And the gold package is effectively quite lucrative too, but people will generally pick towards the middle. So the bronze package immediately starts becoming off the table, but it's still there as an option. So the customer has the choice. So I think it's a really good way of targeting different customers at different levels or at different stages that have different wants and needs. Because I think if you were looking at this example, for example, just offered the silver package, people who would have bought your bronze package, or people who would have even pushed for your gold or platinum packages, are now alienated because they've only got the choice of the silver package. So I think if you're not doing that already, I would definitely give it some consideration about how you can maybe tweak your offering to give customers that bit more choice. So we'll open the poll again to see where you're actually at with that and how you package up your options. So the first option, your customers are given a variety of options to choose from. Different options available, but you're actually only really promoting one of them. Generally only one option, but you can amend it if you're asked. So you do react to your customers' wants, but it's not promoted that way. And only one option, and you don't really consider any options for other packages. And in certain situations and circumstances, there may be a need where it is only one option, but think about the different bolt-ons and add-ons that you can accompany that with. And it might be through collaborations with other businesses where you can offer them a plus package. So there are always options out there. So while you're doing that poll, we'll just see how everyone is currently positioned. And maybe there are some opportunities there for you to move yourself forward in this area, and maybe look at other packages.
Okay, good. So quite a few people have already chosen their options, about 60%. So just waiting for a few more people to put their options in.
Great.
Okay, I'm going to close the poll now.
Okay. That's good. It's a lot more heavily weighted towards giving customers options, and I think that is really the way to go. You know, I think ideally you need to give as many options as possible, because you run the risk of missing out, not just on the customers that were willing to pay for a more diluted version of your product or service, but actually the customers that would have actually paid more. And I think the more options you give, the more ability you've got to get feedback. So it's quite interesting that 21% of people have said that there are different options available, but you only promote one. So maybe have a think about that. If there are different options, why are we not promoting the different options? And again, a lot of this comes back down to your data. Who are the people buying the other options? And can you do some target marketing towards those people to boost your numbers up there? Generally only one option, but can amend if we're asked. There's a few of you that have said that. So I think, again, it's good to know that you are flexible in that respect, that you can actually amend your offering. But I think instead of just waiting for the customers to ask, maybe promote it and look at different packages that you can create for them. Again, get the data, spot the trends, because if you can see that a customer is asking you to do X, X, and X on a regular basis, then maybe there's an angle there for you to create that as a package or an offering. And those of you that only have one option, again, there may be the odd chance where there's a reason for that specifically, but maybe if it's just a case of, you know what, we've never really thought of doing packages, or we've never really thought of creating options for our clients, again, have a little think about that, because I do believe that giving customers more choice, but not too much choice. We're not talking about hundreds of options here, because then they'll go into perhaps procrastination mode and not really choose anything. You want to make it as easy as possible, but identifying the area they're likely to buy. So a few options, like the slide that Greg articulated earlier on the bronze, silver, gold, platinum package, is often the sort of the max in terms of kind of key options that you'd give to your customers. So for those of you that are not exploring options, have a little look and maybe have a think about whether you can maybe change your offering slightly to uncover options there. Okay, so that's interesting to know. The good thing there is that the majority of you are giving customers options. So for the final part, we're going to look at your website and social media, as often this is the first impression customers will see of your brand and ultimately you. And this could be the determining factor in making a sale. So when considering your social media, you need to firstly consider your target audience, like we said, and what platforms they're likely to use. Because if you just apply a blanket scattergun approach to all the social media platforms, you're likely to waste at least a portion of your time. And one of the biggest things I would recommend is to promote quality over quantity when looking at your website and social media accounts. And we've seen it where being too active on social media can actually turn customers away. So you just have to be careful and try and achieve a good balance. The other thing is that I've seen quite a lot of business owners do is actually try and make it perfect. You know, I'm of the opinion that the people that want to push themselves and develop perfect doesn't really exist, because it's always a pathway to the next stage. But I think it's a case of getting it to a stage where, you know what, it presents you and your brand well, and then develop it as you go. Because if you wait for, say, things like your website to be perfect, I just want to make this final tweak, etc., 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 you'll probably never get it off the ground. So I think it's a case of get it to a sort of minimum viable position and then just go with it. I'm not saying do a half-hearted job by any stretch, but when you feel comfortable with it, just go with it. Don't strive to make it that extra 1% perfect, because it will just slow you down. So a few things to consider here. So setting up a business social media account, make sure that you have business social media accounts and you're not using your personal accounts, because with the business account, you get better access to insights and analytics. Make sure that your email, phone number, and website can be linked directly. Just making things flow as well as possible to make the customer experience as good as possible. If your accounts are set up under your personal name, as mentioned, you may miss out on these features. So make sure you've got that under control first. Emphasize your brand and your values on your website, because your branding ensures that you're immediately recognizable, but keep it clean, uniform, and easy to navigate. So use keywords that customers are likely to resonate with. And again, it will come back and get them into that emotional feeling zone quicker. And like we mentioned on the first webinar last week, we were saying about talking about your passion and share your story. I personally get quite attracted to websites where the owners actually share their story of how they've got to where they are and what they actually believe in as people, because I think that really resonates quite well with me, and it sort of touched me on a more personal level. So don't be afraid to share your passion and share your story about what you're looking to create and your wider vision. Put that on your website. And put that on your social media content as well. Make sure you have the social media widgets on your website. So they're the little icons that make it easy for people to find your platforms. Again, sometimes that gets forgotten about, but it makes it so much easier for people to be on your website, click onto your Twitter, click onto your LinkedIn, click onto your Facebook, and automatically follow you. It's done easy then. It saves customers having to go away, or potential customers having to go away and then look and then find or Google you or find you on Instagram or whatever. Make it easy for them. Look to incorporate an email subscription with a call to action on your website. If people are visiting your website, this is the perfect opportunity to push them to sign up. Once you've got them signed up, you can market to them, they can become customers much more easier. As putting the call on action to your website, it'll encourage people to sign up to your newsletters and look to give exclusive features and discounts where possible. Again, you have to manage this because you don't want to give too much away, but you need something to ideally entice them in. Google information, getting that up to date. As soon as your company appears on Google, people should be able to see your website, phone number, address, opening times, details of your business. So always check this and make sure it's up to date. Just do a regular check just to make sure things are up to date, and anything that can go on there is on there to give as much information as possible. And following on from that, and we mentioned it briefly earlier, was pushing for reviews. So important nowadays. It not only reassures potential customers, but for Google reviews, it actually helps push you further up the rankings. So encourage and try and embed that into your processes. Regularly asking customers for review, especially after you've completed a bit of work for them and they're really happy with what you've done. That's a perfect trigger to get them into say, can you just leave us a quick review? Pop us a review on Google. It'd be really appreciated. Maybe if you are struggling, maybe offering incentives for clients that do review, that do put a positive review up there on Google. You can also use things like Trustpilot, but Google's good because it helps you get up the rankings as well. And the other thing that would really help most businesses with their planning is set up a social media and marketing calendar, because this allows you to prepare in advance and you can organize your content across channels, and it will help you be consistent. And using different formats for a message such as text, visual or video, they're going to appeal to different kind of learners and will resonate more with different types of people. So try and offer a mixture of content. I think that's really important. And don't be afraid to post ad hoc. If you're out at an event or a meeting where you've met a number of people, tag them and their businesses and get that sort of that conversation flowing, get that interaction going, because it will help, and it will help create exposure across all your platforms. So we've got a couple more final polls to finish off for today, and they're around your social media activity and your web presence. So the first poll is all around how you've basically described your social media and web presence. So at the moment, you've got a fully operational website and you're regularly updating your content, your social media. You've maybe got a fully operational website, but perhaps you're updating your content on maybe an ad hoc basis when you feel like it, when something really happens. It's a bit reactive. We have a website and social media presence, but we don't really update it, or you just literally don't really have a website or a social media presence. So a minute or so just to jot down where you're at. Just be honest. It's great that so many of you are participating in this poll, because it really gives us an outline of where everyone is. But yeah, just be honest, and remember, everyone starts from somewhere, you know. But I think right now in this day and age, I think from a marketing, positioning, branding point of view, to have even just a basic website and an element of the social media presence is so important.
Yeah, so about 70% so far, Joe. While we're just waiting for a few more people, just remind people, if you've got any questions, please do put them in the questions panel, and we'll get them to Joe once we've finished.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to close the poll now and share it.
Okay, so we've got a bit of a mixture again, which is interesting. So those of you that don't have a website or social media presence, I mean, maybe just have a little think about what you're potentially missing out on, especially if customers have a conversation with you perhaps and look to check your website as a means of verification. There's no website there. nowadays not having a website can add an element of maybe distrust, perhaps unfairly, don't get me wrong. But I think, like we said, even just having a basic website with maybe just some case studies and a bit about yourself is better than not having anything at all. And consider the need for your social media presence. You know, like we said, it doesn't mean that you need to be active on every single social media platform, but there probably is a social media platform out there that your demographic will be on. So consider that, and maybe just, like we said, start small. Maybe just start with maybe a bit of content about who you are, what the business does, and build it up from there. But again, like we touched on earlier, don't be scared to get further advice on this. Use experts where possible, because if it's not your forte, it will be worthwhile you making an investment into working with someone where it is and they're really passionate about it. For those of you that have a website with a social media presence, great, you've made a start, but you're not updating it regularly. Again, if you can build that consistent habit of checking it, updating it, you will get better results from it. Fully operational and not updated on an ad hoc basis. So a quarter of you have said that. So again, it's just about, you're nearly there, but it's just, if you're only updating on an ad hoc basis, maybe consider how you can make that a bit more systematic. And nearly half of you are fully operational and regularly updated. Brilliant. And I think then you can start looking at different ways to entice customers. I know nowadays you can do polls, and like we're doing now, polls and things like that to generate conversations, because that will boost quite quickly. People are commenting on what you're doing and what you're seeing, especially on things like LinkedIn. You can really generate big exposure quite quickly. So it's a case of, okay, you've got your website fully operational and you're regularly updating your content. What are you learning from your content that you're putting up? What are you attributing to that? Are you getting more business from it? And if so, why? And the more you can drill down and get more feedback from the content you're putting up, the better, because you'll be able to learn from that and again continue to make good quality decisions. So that's really interesting. The next poll that we'd like to finish off with is all around your frequency of sort of communications. So how often do you send communications such as mail shots or newsletters to your customers? And bearing in mind, the reason we've put things like daily, weekly, monthly in there is because you can overdo it. So we have to be careful. But let's have a look, see where you're at, because the options are daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, or we don't. I mean, if you do it maybe 6 monthly or yearly, because that's not an option on there, just select quarterly if you are doing it, as opposed to we don't. But yeah, let's see how often you're all sending your communications out. So again, it's one of them things where we need to get a good balance, because if we do it too often, you could end up getting unsubscribes from customers because it's just too much.
Okay, so we're about 60%. Just going to do a few more seconds for the last few people to make their choices. Okay, I'm going to close it and share now.
Great, okay. So it's interesting that no one's doing any communications daily, and I think maybe for things like perhaps Twitter and things like that, maybe a thought of the day or just something might be okay. But I think more detailed communications on a daily basis may become a bit intense. And again, I think you have to test it and gauge your customers' wants and needs there. Weekly and monthly, pretty strong amount of you are doing things at least on a monthly basis, which is good to see. I think you should be doing something on at the very least on a monthly basis. Quarterly, it might be a bit too infrequent, and then 18% if you don't. So okay, so I think those of you that are doing things quarterly, maybe just drill down and ask yourself why you're only communicating things and communicating quarterly. It may be that your demographic, that you've done the analysis and that's what your demographic wants, but I think there's probably more good quality value that you can add on a more regular basis, even if it's diluted. Rather than saving everything up for maybe a quarterly piece, you might do smaller monthly pieces, because the benefit of doing it a bit more regularly is, although you don't want to be completely bombarding your customers, you do want to be regularly in their ears and regularly in their eyes. You know, if you leave it too long, there may be others out there that may catch their eye while you're waiting for your next quarterly piece. But as long as you're doing something right now, I think that's probably more important. But I think, again, gauge it and analyze it and get feedback, because your customers will ultimately dictate what they appreciate, what they like. And maybe some of those of you that are doing it on a quarterly basis, the customers may say, you know what, I'd like to hear from you a little bit more often, because I like what you do, but then your quarterly pieces take me quite a while to get through. It's quite a lot of content on there. It spends quite a lot of my time reading. I prefer to spread that out. So have a little think. And on the flip side, people who you're communicating to weekly may say, you know what, it's a bit too frequent. I prefer if you did things a little bit less intensely. So again, it will come from feedback, but it's interesting to see there, especially interesting that nobody communicates daily. But again, when we're looking at it, it will all come down to really what your customers want, what your customers appreciate. That's why it's so important to speak to them and get the feedback there. So I think we're pretty much done. It's been good to see the answers, and it's good to see that we've got a range of people positioned at different places. But I think we're going to open the floor now for any questions anyone has. I know sales and marketing is a huge subject, so we're very unlikely we'll be able to cover everything in the short time we have. But hopefully that's given everyone a few pointers to take away.
Yep. So I mean, we have had quite a few questions come in, Joe. So the first one's kind of on that theme there. So I have so many things I could do and so many options. I don't really know where to start. What advice can you give?
I mean, that's a really good question. It's a common question that we find a lot of us find ourselves in on a regular basis. And my advice, coming back to what I was touching on earlier, would be to start small and just test the option that you feel will get you the best results quickest. So there's probably something, if you look at all the options that you've identified, there's probably something that your gut's maybe telling you, you know what, this I feel will get me the best results quickest. So start with that and just test that, but put your efforts into that. Don't try loads of other options alongside that to start with, because too often what we see is too many options can actually result in you procrastinating and not actually doing anything, or spreading yourself too thin. So it's really important that you fight this. And your sales and marketing plan can actually help you here, because I imagine if you go through all the elements, there's likely to be something that you feel, you know what, that's the gap, that's the weakness, that's the area we can tune up or really improve quickly, that we're not doing anything at all on, and that will give us really big results quickly. So start with that. And if you are really struggling for something to start with, I would look at customer feedback, because like we said, the information you get from your customers is so valuable and it shouldn't be underestimated. So I think if you are really, really struggling, look at customer feedback. If you want to use your sales and marketing plan for other areas, use that as well. But I think they're the two things that I'd look at to start off with. Because as soon as you start getting feedback from your customers, you're able to spot trends, and off the back of that, you can make good quality decisions.
Great, thanks, Joe. So another one that's come in is, I have a plan in my head, so why should I bother writing it down?
Okay, and I do understand where this question comes from, but to me, I feel writing it down makes it more real, and it brings that sense of commitment. You've actually physically written something down, or typed it up. It also makes it easier to share with others, and most importantly, easier to track and set targets against. Because if it's all in your head, the only person that really knows about it is you. So then you can sort of kid yourself or perhaps fool yourself. But if you really push and take the leap and write it down, put it out there for others to see as well, you're now accountable for something, and you will push yourself to get it done. So once you've sort of written down the number of leads you want to generate in a given month, and you've shown it to someone else, there's less chance of you either consciously or subconsciously making excuses, so to speak, to not make it happen. You're now basically putting it out there and committing to it, and it will help you open your mind to find ways of making these leads happen in this example. So I think it's a really good thing to write it down, but also actually show it and share it with others as well.
Thanks, Joe. So we've got one that's more of a statement than a question, I guess. But they don't like social media, but they know their business needs to do it. They just can't bring themselves to do it, and they'd rather focus on things that they enjoy doing. Do you have any pointers for them?
Yeah, I kind of agree with the statement in some respects. I think you should look to focus as much of your time as possible on the things you enjoy doing, but I think you probably also need to appreciate there are certain elements of business that are necessary, even if you don't particularly like it or enjoy it. So I think you should spend time on things you're passionate about. And like we said, this is where I think you need to consider maybe enlisting the help of specialists who do have a passion in this area, as it's ultimately going to give you a better overall result and make you feel more happier overall as well. And I think if you want to grow and develop your business, avoid falling into that trap of thinking you have to do everything yourself, as you really don't. And I think that's what the best business owners realize really quickly. They say, you know what, my passion is X, but I also know this is really important as part of my growing of my business, but I don't really have a passion for it in the same way. So I'm going to find someone who does. And it's about partnering up with people who have similar beliefs to yourselves as well, so you get a good working relationship right from the start.
Great. I guess following on sort of digital content, do I need to be creating fresh content for my website?
This is a good question. I mean, you probably have heard or been familiar with the phrase "content is king," but it really helps with the SEO, the search engine findings on search engine optimization of your website on Google. So creating that fresh, relevant content for your website on topics that your target audience is actually looking for helps boost your rankings on Google. So think about the questions that you're most asked about your business and answer it in an article or a blog post. And there's a really good book out there called They Ask You Answer, I've been reading recently, and it's about kind of cleverly putting those key common Q&As into an article or a piece of content. Because as people are Googling for answers to these particular questions, you will have an article explaining all about it, and it will drag people to you and push people towards you and your business. So quality content is important. Don't do content for the sake of doing content. It has to have a meaning behind it. What do you want to achieve from this content? Do you want to educate people? Are you looking to generate a certain area of a lead in a certain area or a certain demographic, or make a certain demographic of customer more aware? Just make sure there's a purpose behind it. But quality overrules quantity, but we need to be doing fresh content on a regular-ish basis to keep you high up the search engine rankings. So when you're thinking about your content, come back to that Q&A and look at those common questions you get asked, cleverly put that into an article, and you'll already have a good starting point there.
That's good advice, Joe. So a couple more questions that have come in. So how important is it to have a marketing budget, in particular when the budget would need to be so small? So I guess someone starting out from the beginning.
I think that's a really good question. I think it's important you start as you mean to go on. And I think marketing is one of them things that's often sort of overlooked. And at the start, you do have to balance things. I do agree, and I do understand. So maybe you look at areas where, you know, I can do things myself. I can go and meet customers. I can get feedback. I can generate this. I can perhaps build the website myself. But you also have to look at the time and effort that sort of things will do. So I think budgeting and forecasting is very important. And I think marketing needs to be aligned on those forecasts, because I think as you look to grow your business, you are likely to need to make more investments into marketing as you go. So I think working out your marketing buffer as opposed to just leaving it or perhaps doing it on a whim is not really a good strategy. So I think what the best thing to do would be to look at preparing a set of financial forecasts for the next year ahead, and ideally the next couple of years after that, based on what we were talking about last week about your overall vision for your business. And then you can start seeing how much income you need to generate to allow you to expend more on marketing. But we'll come on to sort of cash flow, raising finance to enable you to pay for the marketing on one of the later webinars. But I think to sort of answer the question is, you really need to consider having a marketing budget of some sort, because it's then embedded in your working plan and you will not forget about it. And it won't come as a big shock when your traditional methods and your do-it-yourself methods are starting to dry up. And I think it can actually work in your favor. If you put a bit of effort into marketing and channel it in the right way, you can actually generate results that will generate you more income and generate you more cash anyway. So I think it's about taking a bit of a leap, I'd say, but I definitely think you need to allocate something for marketing, but making sure you're partnering up with people or spending that money really wisely. So critiquing people on what that marketing is going to do, and that will come from measuring your marketing efforts as well. You know, you need to be understanding where your marketing is leading and what you're getting from it, because it's too easy to just nowadays throw money at marketing and not really get much from it. But because you don't know, and it's a bit of a grey area, it's quite difficult to quantify, so you don't really know whether you're right or wrong. So again, partnering with the right people with your marketing is really important.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Just one person's asking more for clarification. I guess, what is the difference between a digital CRM and just a CRM? So
what I was sort of meaning by digital CRM was more of an interactive CRM. So you can interact with your other pieces of software, so you can seamlessly and easily move across and create push out content off the back of your CRM without you having to manually do lots of things. So in that view, I'd probably say a spreadsheet was more of a manual CRM because you'd have to upload it into a piece of software to communicate with your customers. Whereas a digital CRM would be on a system and a piece of software that you'd be able to select certain customers and send out content straight away within the CRM, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's fine. Just one last question, I think is all we've got time for. So it's about the communications to clients. So how many call to actions should be on those communications, do you think?
I think it's important not to have too many calls to actions. I think I would start off limiting it to just one or maybe two. But I think if you start creating too many, it can start causing confusion. So I think I'd have a really clear call to action off the back of the communication. So it's very easy for the customer to then, or the potential customer, to say, right, I know where I need to go now. So I think you run the risk of confusing things if you start putting too many calls to actions on there personally. Other people may see it differently, but I think especially if you're starting off, I think having a really good quality, clear call to action is probably better than trying to throw loads of things in there.
Great, thank you. So that's all the questions we've got time for today. Hopefully, as we went through, you were all taking lots of notes and got some actions for you to follow up on. As we mentioned at the beginning, this is the second webinar in the series, so we have a couple more webinars running. The upcoming webinars you can see here are next week we've got mindset, then we're followed with Cashflow, systems and processes, profitability, team and culture. So I do have just a quick poll to ask you if you have signed up for these webinars. Just leave that a few seconds. Just quickly share that one. It's always nice to see that people haven't signed up previously and are going to sign up. So obviously enjoying the content. So hopefully see you at the next webinars as well. So we've also got some other webinars outside of the program that Joe's running, and that's more HR related. So how to deal with bullying, harassment, and then coronavirus returning to work after lockdown. I think everybody's getting ready for that. And then obviously we are running some training courses as well. So we'll send you some links to those as well. If you do want to hear from us on our newsletter, then please do click the link. It will be on the follow-up email that comes to you after this webinar. And then one last poll before we go. It's just really if you'd like to find out any further information about the Norden's Interactive Accelerator Program, and we can pass your details on to Joe and his team. Okay, I'm going to close that now. Obviously, we ran out of time for questions with Joe, so if you do want have any other questions, then please do email us and we'll pass those on to Joe and he'll reach out to you. We will send some feedback afterwards to just gather thoughts and where we can improve on the content or anything else you'd like us to present in the future as well. That just leaves me to say thank you again to Joe. It's really informative. I hope everyone found it useful, and we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar.
Brilliant. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, everyone. Yeah. See you soon.
See you soon.